rolling out 100 yards. It's just, it's pretty nuts.
Yeah.
You never say good shot. You never say good shot to anybody before you actually see the ball stop, because otherwise it goes in the bunker.
Yeah, that's a good point. Because here somebody hits it. Oh, good swing. Look at that. Good ball flight. But until it lands and rolls to a stop, you don't know over there.
No, that's great. So are you going to play golf when you're over there, Bodine?
No, I don't.
Leaving your stick at home?
We're leaving our sticks at home. So we are, I think we're on the boat for 7 days, or 7 nights. But I just don't think that there's an opportunity to go spend 5 hours away and, haul all the golf clubs over, stick them in your room on the ship. That just, there's plenty of other things that will keep us busy.
Yeah. And the 10,000 golf balls you'll have to bring for that different style of play.
I think I would probably purchase those at the pro shop.
Yeah.
And at the turn.
At the turn. Nice. All right.
Well, welcome everybody. Good to have another Crew and A call. We've had a couple the last couple of weeks, and today, I mean, I know we're going to talk about a few things. It's going to be a pretty open call. I would love to filter in some more questions than we had the last couple of calls, because it seems like we constantly get chatting, and then we don't have that much time for the call for the questions at the end. But Ryan, what's cooking?
Gotta turn this one into a bang. We we're talking some trash. Jeff and I resurrected the pickup soccer game on Monday night, and I've said to many people, we ran circles around those boys.
Yeah. So for those of you that know our backgrounds, we grew up playing soccer, and Ryan and I both have kiddos. I've got 3, Ryan has 2, and so when we grew up, my grandpa was the coach at St. Louis University, or the assistant coach at St. Louis University, which was a dynasty back in the 70s, and just had always had really, really high quality teams, Division I soccer players. Many of them went on to be All-Americans, played professional soccer. And so then Ryan and I were like the next generation of our family. So growing up in the summertime, we would play soccer with like my dad, my uncles, and even my grandpa. So we were playing just pickup soccer with like All-American players, from a couple decades ago, but still that's where we really learned to play, and I think that's where my bias comes in when I see so much structure to all these kids, golf, and this goes for golf, this goes for every sport,
right?
So much structure built into all these practices and, this academy stuff that all these kids play. Not enough kids go out and just play on their own and have pickup games, whether that be golf or soccer or baseball, the old sand lot. My dad talks about going to play at the sand lot. And so when Ryan and I were in high school, we started playing with all these guys every Monday night in the summertime. And that's what prepared us, or that was, a huge part of what prepared us to then go to our high school tryouts at the end of the summer before the season started up. And that's where we learned to play. And it was always amazing to us that these old guys would come out and they would just kick the tar out of us, like they were just so much smarter. Their touch was better. They just worked circles around us. And so now we are the old guys.
Right.
And, my son is going into his freshman year in high school. Ryan's son is going into 7th grade, right, Ryan?
Yep.
And, Murphy's a very high level player going into 7th grade. My son, Sam, played club soccer, and our other nephews all, they all kind of play. And so we wanted to bring this back. Even my dad came out and played with us on Monday night. My dad's 67 years old, and still to this day, he is working the ball around these little guys.
Oh yeah.
But
good.
There's something to be said for being the veterans, right? There's something to be said for knowing how to play the game and how to be smarter with the way that you play, as opposed to trying to outmuscle or overpower or, come in and just use every ounce of energy in every play. Whereas Ryan and I, we knew like, hey, we're in our mid 40s. We're not going to be the ones out sprinting you guys or, out hustling, but we're going to be smarter with the way that we play. And yeah, it was funny because we totally worked these kids over.
It was nice. They had to split us up. We were on the same team, and they said, "You guys can't be on the same team anymore." I'm like, "What are you talking about? We're over twice as old as you kids."
But to be fair, like that was the most either one of us have run or sweat. And, I was pretty sore the next day. I wouldn't tell the kids that, but that kind of got us talking about the fact that, as 45-year-old, 44, 46-year-old dudes, like I know a lot of guys that wouldn't even try to go out and do that. And then take that into the fitness world or the golf world. And, I know a lot of people get to this certain age and we start to think about we start to let our age dictate what we're doing or what we think we can do. And so that got us talking about the topic of today's call of, we're very resilient. Our bodies are very resilient, but we can kind of play into whatever we tell ourselves. And there's that old adage of, you're only as old as you think you are. Well, there's a lot to that because going back to my grandpa played, he would go out and play with us until he was in his early 70s, probably up to 75. And it was awesome because there would always be at least one or two plays where he would, steal a ball from the hot shot kid, or like he would do something and and it was just kind of like, oh my God, he still has it, at 75. But he was always a much younger version of whatever age he was. And so that got us kind of thinking like, let's bring that topic to the table this week, because I think that everybody that's on this call and that will be watching this call in many ways already has that mindset that you're not going to let your age dictate what you can and can't do physically. But sometimes we also need a little bit of a kick in the pants to say, like, maybe you're not even pushing yourself as much as you could be. Because I know that we all go through waves of that. And sometimes working out in the gym, or even, if it's your golf game, for me personally, there's times where I go through these lulls and, let little aches or pains kind of take over and make me shy off a little bit. But then when I finally decide to push through or to challenge it a little bit, I see that like I was almost kind of being a bit of a baby, letting that hold me back. Now there's times when you have to be smart, right? Like we're not talking about pushing yourself to the point of exhaustion or doing things that are stupid,
right,
but intentionally and intelligently lighting a little bit of a fuse under yourself to say, maybe I need to step it up a little bit to the next level.
Yeah, it's funny because earlier this week when you wrote that email about you don't have to go 110%, 1,000 miles an hour, because that's, you don't have to look like a Gatorade commercial. So it's interesting that we are shifting to this. Like, no, you don't have to, but you do need to push yourself a little bit further because and then I always go back to, what's that Navy SEAL guy?
David Goggins.
Yes, David Goggins. Like when you think you're done, your body has 40% more left. Mm-hmm. So let's say normal people like us, not David Goggins, if we think we're finished, we pushed another 10%. You don't have to run 100 laps.
Right.
So it's right there.
Yeah, I mean, it felt pretty good to get out there and push it. And like we both said, when was the last time we intentionally sweat like that? Like went out and did something, because it was 100 degrees that night too.
Yeah.
Like our wives were saying like, you sure you guys want to go do this tonight?
Of course.
And I was like, you know what? First of all, yes, I'm not going to be a wuss, but second of all, these kids are going to have to be able to tolerate that in August when they're going out to play in their tryouts. So I would rather be out there and kind of helping coach them along a little bit. And in this way, we can kind of gauge what kind of level we're playing at. But also to get them used to the fact that, well, let's face it, kids these days are soft. So
I agree.
If they see that we can go out there and we're playing and we're fine, like, come on, man, you're 12 and 14 and 15 years old. Like you should be able to run around and, not have to get a drink of water every 10 minutes. And, so part of it is us just kind of old school dads trying to toughen our kids up.
Right.
But part of it is also showing the fact that, if we're going to push ourselves, you guys can do that too. In fact, I told my son, Sam, it's like, if it wasn't 100 degrees outside, we probably would have been running those hills afterwards just to do a little bit more conditioning for you guys. And he was like, oh my God, thank God it was 100 degrees, because he did not want to do that.
Yeah. And plus we said next game to 5, have to win by 2, and it ended up being 11 or 12-10. So
we
had
finally
that extra. We had the OT.
It was like an extra half hour of overtime.
That was plenty.
But along these lines, so kind of going back to what you said about us sending the email last week about, not being stupid and pushing yourself too hard and, like be smart about it. So I think that where the line has to be drawn or something to be cognizant of is that you have to be aware of the intention of whatever you're doing also. So I forget who I heard talking about this, but they're saying like, look, you have to know a little bit about what you're doing and why it's beneficial. So obviously going out and playing in 100-degree heat and playing soccer, we knew that that's beneficial because that's specifically the kind of training that these boys are going to need when they go into their tryouts later on. Now, again, do Ryan and I need to go out and do that for any specific purpose? No, not really. But aside from the fact that we enjoy playing, right? But like, if you understand what the intention is, like a cold plunge, if you don't understand what the intention is of it, and you just do a cold plunge, like you might think that was the worst thing ever. And you won't then recognize the benefits that you get from it. You might not be aware of the fact that it gives you more energy. You might not be aware of the fact that doing it several times over the course of an extended period of time might help with keeping you healthier. You might just be like, that was so cold and I hated it and that was stupid. I'll never do it again. And so, same thing for going out and running in 100-degree heat. That was awful. I was super tired. But if you understand what the intention is of it, then you can deduce why you would then want to do it again and maybe ways that you could do it better. But I want to continue to reiterate how resilient our bodies are. This can go back to the dietary stuff. And I always love to bring up the story of Tony Soib when I bring up how resilient the body is, because he's the one that originally said this to me one time. He's like, dude, our bodies can do so much and can rebound from so much that, like, everybody that talks about everything has to be sustainable and you have to be able to do this, like you have to do something that you can do for the rest of your lives. He's like, our bodies can bounce back. I mean, think of some of the stuff that the Navy SEALs do. Think of the training. And so he was doing like some crazy, I think he was fasting for 7 days, like no food for 7 days. The only thing he was eating was a couple like multivitamins and I think maybe a protein shake a day. And I was like, are you insane? You're going to die. This was 10 years ago. He's like, the body is an amazing machine and it can handle so much more. And that goes for training, what you can lift, what you can do in the gym. So, doing some extremely hard workouts. Well, yes, we tell you, don't do a stupid workout that is just insane for the point of being insane. But if there's a reason behind it that, and you're doing it in order to achieve a goal, like building hypertrophy, building muscle, if you really want to go that route, and that's a huge, important thing for you, you can go do some pretty insane workouts that are going to work, but I would never have the average Joe do them because, the volume, the intensity is just way, way too crazy.
Right.
We had a guy on the show. What's his name? Michael. Oh, he's a golf pro up in Connecticut. But he was also a bodybuilder, and he was on the episode. He was talking about some of the workouts that he used to do with, it was one of the top bodybuilders back in the day. And I mean, it would be like 4 hours in the gym of, like just hundreds and hundreds of repetitions to the point where you could barely walk out of the gym. But for those guys, it had a purpose, it had an intention. Now it would have killed the regular Joe,
Right.
but it just shows that over the course of time, building up that resilience and building up your body, you can do so much more than we think we can.
Yeah, I know that you love the word sustainable
Right.
because it, and I really think it's just a semantics argument because you hate that because sustain basically just means you're staying
Staying the
still,
same. Right.
right? Where there needs to be, can't use the word progressive anymore. You need to progress. I mean, everything is political these days, right? So, and I know why people say it's sustainable in that you can stick to it for a very long time.
Correct. So like when I think of sustainable, the word sustainable, like it has to be something that's sustainable, used in the proper way. Yeah, that's building habits, right? Like that's doing something that you can continue to build on or continue to do for long periods of time. But that's often used as a crutch word to say, oh, well, that's not sustainable. That's too hard to do forever. So you should never do that. Right. Like something like the Forge. I don't plan to do that for the rest of my life. That's not a sustainable program. Maybe for somebody it is. And maybe at some point I get to the point where that is a sustainable program for me, but I don't intend it to be. I intend that to be 40 days of hard shit that is a challenge that I'm going to push through, and it's going to be difficult, but by going through that 40 days, that then makes me a stronger person on the other side. So now what I can consider to be sustainable is a little bit harder than what I used to think was sustainable 40 days ago. Does that make sense?
100%. Yeah, that is like exactly what we're talking about, because you had an intent going into the 40 days. Otherwise, there's no shot you could possibly do that. And what I've noticed is, what used to be hard for me to get to 180, then I got to 180, then I go up to 182. I'm like, oh, 180 is a joke. Then you get to 178 and blah, blah, blah. And now it's like, okay, 170 is a joke. You keep changing your target, and the intent being eventually I'll get to, Men's Health cover model status, and that'll be a joke. But so I totally understand where you're coming from.
Yeah, it's like, so if you just say it has to be sustainable, it's like, well, then that's just kind of like, again, that's just staying the same. If you don't build in these waves of hardship and challenge and intensity to then kind of, it's almost like changing the thermometer, right? Like the thermostat, I should say. Like if you're constantly cruising at 75 degrees, every now and then you got to kick it down to 70 to kind of get used to that temperature. Or, you use the St. Louis heat here, like you start to adjust to the different temperatures. When it gets to be 100 degrees for 2 weeks, then all of a sudden we kind of adjust to that. So if you and then it doesn't seem so miserable. So that's a really great analogy is the fact that like 100, you go from 80 degrees to 100 degrees and it just sucks for a certain period of time. But then all of a sudden you drop down to a 95 degree day and you're like, ooh, this feels pretty good. When, a month ago, that would have been miserable. So having these times where you decide to really challenge yourself in all different ways. And, so much of what we talk about is the physical nature of it, the diet, the workouts. But this could be anything. One of the things that I've mentioned I've really been working on is my meditation. And, for a while, sitting quietly for 5 minutes was really, really hard. But now after doing it for longer periods of time and now doing like chunks of 20 minutes, it makes it now 20 minutes is hard to keep the mind just kind of clear and focused. But now 5 minutes is way easier, so just constantly pushing past some of those things. I know that, like some of the different people that we listen to, Ed Milet, Dr. Joe Dispenza, John Shepard has been talking about, I think it's Alex Huberman, right, John? Just talking about the neuroscience and how, like so much of this is a game. So much of this is you putting yourself in situations to just kind of up your game a little bit. And I think we tend to get in, or I know we tend to get into our little grooves, our little comfort zones, our patterns of habit. And day after day, we do the same things over and over and over again. And sometimes we lose the fact that, hey, maybe I need to step out of this comfort zone a little bit. Maybe I do need to, instead of working on so much of my mobility, maybe I need to go kind of lift some heavy weights, start dabbling with lifting a little bit heavier weights. Or maybe I should go try to do like some sprints as far as on the rower or the Airdyne bike or something that I never do. And it sounds miserable to me. Maybe I need to challenge myself a little bit like that. Maybe I do need to do more mobility because I don't like to do that stuff. But everybody has a little bit more in the tank, or a lot more in the tank than they think they do.
All right. And the strategy is not to go out there and try to do P90X for 30 days in a row. It's to just push yourself just a little, like at my life, just one more.
Right.
Because that, again, that makes it sustainable. That makes it where you can't stick to
more
it a little bit
realistic.
longer.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Realistic.
That's a better word. Yeah, where you can. If you, right, because, so today, I've got a workout, and if you told me I had to do 30 more minutes afterwards, I may not do any of it because it sounds horrible.
Right.
But yeah, if you tell me, all right, after your workout, do 5 minutes of XYZ. That I can do. Do that for 3 weeks, and then maybe I can do 10 minutes after that.
Yeah. Think about a good example is a pull-up. Many adults can't do pull-ups, and I would say probably 4 or 5 years ago, Sue, my wife, decided, she was starting to get into some real training, and said she wanted to learn how to do a pull-up, and thought that it was impossible. And then I don't know how long it took. Maybe it may have taken 6 months, may have taken up to a year, but she was doing like 3 to 4 pull-ups by the end. And that's a very hard exercise that she like never thought would ever happen. We said,
Right.
well, if you want it to happen, then we'll work towards it happening. But if you just tell yourself you can't do it, then you'll never do it. So let's take golf, for example. Let's say you're somebody that shoots 95 on a regular basis, and you're like, you know what? It'd be cool to be somebody that shoots in the low 80s, but that'll probably never happen. Well, what if you said today that by July 14th next year, you had to shoot under 85, or, you owed me $20,000, right? I
Right.
bet you'd figure out how to shoot under 85.
Yeah.
So it's not that you can't do it. It's that you've never drawn the line in the sand and said, this is what I really, really want to do.
This year I've consistently shot in the low 80s. And then if it gets any warmer than that for the day, I quit, for the temperature.
How many calls have you been waiting to use that?
Pardon me?
I said, how many of these calls have you been waiting to slip that in?
Yeah, that's a good one.
That was good. I like
Yeah.
that.
Always shooting low 80s.
Yeah.
I can't believe I've gone this long without ever having heard that.
Yeah.
And so we're playing tomorrow morning, mandatory golf. I guarantee that's going to come out of my mouth at some point.
Yeah.
Giving, gym class full credit, of course.
Of course.
Yeah.
Well, you'll break 80 tomorrow.
Yeah.
Right.
I sure hope so. Yeah,
Nine
we just
holes?
play 9. Yeah. That'll be just fine.
Well, I shot 93 a while back, and I text my coach out in Goldsboro, North Carolina, and he called me back. He said, "Congratulations! Now your next goal is 89, just 89.
Mhm.
Small increment. You'll pick up
Right.
those 4 shots. So we're
Right.
working on it."
So I played with a guy last week. So this was an interesting situation. I have not been playing that great of golf the last couple of months, between several different things. I just haven't been driving the ball well, haven't hit my irons well. I got some new golf clubs, which is funny. You get new golf clubs and you think I was fitted for them, and you think the first day you go out, it's just going to be a stripe show. And it was the worst round of ball striking I've had in a long time. And it didn't help that I started out with 2 scrambles to play with my new clubs.
The
So
worst
then
thing you can do.
Oh yeah, terrible. So then last Tuesday I got to play. It was a little bit better, but last Friday I played at a course here in town called Gateway National. Great course, kind of a link style course, bent grass fairways, and a buddy of mine, actually a guy that is a buddy from the podcast, a guy named Jason Phillips, but I'd never met him in person, and so he was coming in. He was doing a big nutrition seminar last weekend, and we always said if he's coming into St. Louis, to bring his sticks and we'd try to get out and play. So he said he was coming in and we went out to play. Well, Jason he played on the mini tours back in the day. And, it's been over a decade since he's played real competitive golf, but he wants to get back in. He's going to play in a mid-AM qualifier in the near future. So we get to Gateway and we get paired up with a single, and the singles asks, what tees are you guys going to play? And Jason's like, oh, we're playing the tips. I was like,
I don't play with those guys.
I don't belong back there. Jason went on and shot a 74 from the tips at about 7,100 yards. So
Whoa.
yeah,
That's legit.
really good play. And this is not an easy course either. It's not just a decently long. It's challenging too. But I went back and I played the best round that I've played. I hit my clubs the best I've hit them. I broke 90 on this course, which I took that as a win.
Yeah, from the tips, that's excellent.
From the tips. So like every approach shot was around 200 yards. My laser was, I swear to God, it was stuck on 194 yards on my approach shots. But it was interesting playing with him. I kind of had in my head, like, I can play with this guy and not embarrass myself. That was kind of my mentality.
Right.
But when playing with somebody that's better than you, it's interesting how you can kind of, like we've always said, you kind of play up to your competition or down to your competition.
Right.
And I definitely saw that. And I saw glimmers of a really good golfer in myself that day. And it was funny because, like, I just naturally, when he said we're playing the tips, I was thinking in my head, I'm going to make a fool out of myself in front of this guy. Never met him before. I'm probably not going to break 100. And then I was like, hold on a second. I can hit a ball straight. Like, I have that in me.
Yeah, most days.
Yeah. And so it was just interesting. It was almost like a little experiment for myself. So it was a lot of fun. It's also really cool to play with somebody that's very good and just watch how consistent they are. He hit one bad shot, like that I can remember. Everything else was, maybe off a little bit here or there, missed a couple birdie putts. He easily could have shot par if he sunk a couple of putts. So it was cool.
Right.
It was really cool to see, what a really good player looks like. And also that capability is really, if you think about it, everyone on this call, you've hit a really good, perfect shot for you at some point. It's just, we got to string more of those together. And so again, like, selling ourselves a little bit short. It's funny that my head initially went to, oh fuck, I'm going to make an idiot out of myself. And then, but then that's what it is. Like, sometimes you just got to, like, say, stop. Nope. Quit thinking like that. And let's flip it around. Everything that we've learned from every great person that we've had on this show and that we've read is, you got to think of the positive stuff. You got to think of what's possible, not the shitty stuff that can happen.
Yeah.
So one positive shot that brings you back to the game,
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah,
that's all you need.
That's all you need is that. Same on the range. You get one or two of them that, okay, come back tomorrow.
Yeah.
Keep doing it.
Yep. Exactly.
Yeah. But yeah, if you do want to push yourself, playing with guys that are better than you and girls, of course, is a real, not an easy way to do it, but go grab a guy who's better.
Yeah.
Right.
Like, I remember this was at the SLU playoff game, and I was talking to Uncle Tony and Uncle Mike when they were growing up playing soccer, kind of like we did on Monday. And they're like, yeah, we would go out and play with we'd be 12 and we'd be playing with like the 15 and 16-year-olds, and they would beat us up. But they're like, it made us so much better because they had to find, like in soccer, they had to be quicker and smarter because they were not going to be more physical than the older boys.
Mm-hmm.
So then you figure this out. I can only assume Jason Phillips was longer off the tee than you.
Yeah. Yeah.
So then you had to figure out, okay, how can I hang with this dude? And
Which-
then you got better.
which was funny because as the day went on, I started getting closer and closer and closer to him off the tee box. It was like the one time
Right.
we rolled up and he's like, dude, I piped that one. And he's like, you're only 10 behind me. I'm like,
That's a classic backhanded compliment.
but no, he was actually he was really great to play with because he was very not just positive, but he was very helpful with a couple tips on just a few things that I was doing right, or when I asked for some help. He works with some very high level golfers as well, so it was cool to play with him. And the guy that was with us, the guy that we were paired with, really nice guy, about 40 years old. He could hit the ball a mile, but he was kind of all over the place. And Jason helped him with a couple of his, couple pieces of his swing. And he started striping the ball too. It was cool. So it was a great day of playing golf with somebody that really knew how to play the game. So that was neat. But yeah, back to the thing about playing, with competition that's a little better. That's exactly right. With soccer, with baseball, with anything, like if you have a chance, that's why any really good golfer here in St. Louis, like if they have any shot of going to play in the pros, they have to move somewhere else because
Right.
they can't find a game that's competitive enough for them here all throughout the year. So during the summertime, sure, there's a lot of great players around here, or there can be some really great players, but these guys need to play all around the year. That's why like Adam Long moved down to Florida. A guy like Hayden Buckley, obviously he was living in Columbia, Missouri when he was going to Mizzou, but grew up in Tupelo. He didn't move back to Tupelo. He moved down to Fort Myers so he can get in a lot of games. A lot of guys will go out to Scottsdale or Sea Island. And that's what it's about, finding the competition that you can play up to, where you can maybe put some bucks on the line and go challenge yourself and have to, kind of earn your stripes.
Yeah, all those
Yeah,
golfers kind of like congregate in the same place. Like Jupiter Island's got a bunch of guys,
Mhm.
all those guys out in Scottsdale. So that's why. So
Yeah.
so Phil can take all the money away from them.
Right. Marina, go ahead.
yeah, I fully agree with what you're saying. I have certainly sort of gained from the fact that I play an awful lot with a lady that has been Dutch senior champion for 4 years. I used to play in the European Championship. She's one of my best friends, and she's a scratch golfer. And first you feel quite intimidated, but now for years I've been playing with her, and I have learned so much. And as you said, she gives me tips. We have lessons together, and we're very competitive together. And it just drives you forward. And she's very supportive. It's absolutely brilliant. And I have to tell you, today we had a really big meeting at a competition at the club. And I, for the first time since maybe winter time, I really felt that I played with a lady who normally hits it further than me. Today I hit it further than her because I could feel that I got stronger again. Been doing my exercises. My base is more solid, stronger legs, and it makes you feel that it's all worthwhile when you do these exercises and you see these rewards. And I had the lowest growth of all these about 35 ladies, and it just feels great to get this sort of achievement.
That's
Yeah,
awesome.
right? Yeah. And so being able to go out there and you hit a couple past her, and then you're kind of like, oh, and you kind of start to feel yourself stand up a little taller, you get a little bit more confidence. And now all of a sudden you kind of have that mentality like, hey, maybe this is the trend that I'm on, and I can continue to push this way and get better and stronger. And I think that's awesome. Congratulations. That's so great.
Thank you.
That's an example of the power of the 40-day forge and the back nine. You're having worldwide effects all the way to Europe with Marina winning, logo 135. That's great.
That's right.
Yeah.
It's been powerful. The 40 days forge was really powerful, and the back nine, it really has had a good impact. Yeah. So thank you. Really, really good.
Absolutely. Well, I'm going to give a heads up that I would love for us to have a huge contingent to do that. I mean, I know that people are starting it, here and there throughout the year, but I'm going to do it personally again at the beginning of 2023. So I think it would be really cool to have kind of some lead up to it where, people enlist their friends to join in, and we get a huge faction of people to do that again next year at the start of the year, because I really do think that we could make, and I say we, I mean all of you guys, because anybody that has gone through it or has supported it or tried it, that's just a great example to set for other people. Again, along the same lines of what we're talking about, that at first it sounds a little it sounds very hard to people, sounds very challenging, and some people would say I would just never try that, I would never do it. But if the more people we can continue to build to do that, really the stronger faction we can create in this crew, I think it'll be awesome.
Yeah, should make t-shirts this year too for the Forge. But I think you have to complete it.
Right. I
So-
think, yeah. Have
Right,
something.
Right, there are no participation trophies in 18
Yeah.
strong. That's not how
No.
this works.
No, you only get it if you complete the 40 days
Yeah.
Successfully.
My size is large. I like dark blue. Already completed.
Duly noted. Send
Getting
it
awfully
to.
customized here. Jeez.
And to tell you what, the calendar, I was looking at the calendar, it works out perfectly. New Year's Day is on a Sunday, then you start on Monday.
There we go.
And I think in
Yeah.
the left sleeve, we could put 18 strong, so I look like I'm sponsored when I'm out at the practice range.
Oh,
We
don't
make
you
that
worry.
happen.
We'll get the apparel going.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so Randy said the reason why I was successful in all the sports I played is because I was able to train with some of the world's best, including golf. Like,
Yeah.
can't help but
Just-
not get better. Can't
Yeah.
help
Makes sense.
but get better. Right. And that's right. It's the same thing with, like, again, we always go back to soccer. Like Murphy, their team had to play a year up because they were beating everybody. And then it just made them better to play all those guys a year up. And at the end of the season, they played their own age. Like, oh my gosh, this is
Hmm.
not that it's easy, but they're way more prepared.
Well, and I think you can see what's possible too, right? Like
Right.
you get a glimpse of, what a really good golfer can do.
Yeah.
Like if you're out there, you even hear guys on the PGA Tour talk about like playing with Rory and watching him hit the ball with his driver is just insane. But it then shows you like, okay, that's humanly possible, right? Or you see how good Tiger's short game is, or or Spieth, or some of those guys. Like, yeah, maybe I'm not going to get as good as that person, but this is something that I can work towards. Or with soccer, I can remember thinking like either a certain move or like something that you were working on footwork wise, like how hard it was, or juggling, or those kind of things. But then over time, you just get better at it, and then become secondhand nature. We were just at my son's mountain biking team practice last night, and it's cool because there's kids that are in 6th grade all the way up to seniors in high school. And you see these kids, the seniors in high school, 2 of them in particular. I mean, it's crazy to watch how fast they are and how they navigate these courses and some of the different skills that they have on a bike, which is a totally new sport for me to be a part of. And then you've got these 6th graders that can barely like stay balanced and like ride with one hand off, or, and they're going through all these skills. But those kids then see like the different levels above them, and they get to practice with these kids. And now they're seeing what's possible. And like, oh, if I continue to practice and do this, like, and they see like how good the one kid was from last year to now. And it's like, whoa, like the changes that can be made if you simply put the work in. Rarely is it impossible. It's just that, again, you haven't set the intention to then put in the work.
Yeah, it's funny. I was watching, so Dave Letterman has a new show on Netflix, and he just interviews people just for a longer period of time. And so last time I was watching one with Kevin Durant, and you hear like every professional sports guy say this thing. When he was a kid, he remembered I was 9 years old and I got to go to the Wizards game. He's like just in awe, like that's the guy that I want to be, because he could see that's what's possible. And this is coming from Kevin Durant, who's, I'm sure he's a first ballot Hall of Famer.
Yeah, definitely. What's anybody have any comments, questions, stories along the lines of this stuff that, I mean, I would love to hear from some of you guys or any experiences you've had that kind of fall in line here.
Oh, we could put Shepard on the spot because there was a time when he was a fat guy, and now he's a runner. There he is.
Yeah. I'm
So nicely stated.
definitely wasn't, I'm an ex-fat guy.
We all are.
Yeah. So I was pushing about 280, I think, when
Oh my gosh,
Right
I didn't
around-
realize. Holy cow.
yeah, 280. So yeah, my wife got pregnant with our first. And I just saw myself as I'm going to be a fat dad if I don't do something. So that was when we were living in Dogtown, and went for my first run, and could barely made it a mile. I remember both of my arms were completely numb, poor circulation, everything like that. But finished the mile and kept going, and then made the goal of doing a half marathon, that just to finish. And yeah, I think putting myself on a training plan and finishing that, I don't know how much weight I lost through the process, but it's pretty easy to do when you're pushing 280 and haven't worked out in a while, and hanging out with Jeff's brother-in-law for the past decade or so.
Not a good influence.
Well, I think him moving to South Carolina is what why you lost all that weight.
No, I was
No,
on my way.
this is
before that.
well before, yeah, well before Adam left. What was
Yeah,
the
so
what was
stuck
the
with it,
first
right?
what was that
Stuck with
first
it.
race, John?
My first race was
And
it's
what year
no
was that?
longer, but it was the Lewis and Clark half marathon, which was in St. Charles.
How long
it
ago?
was, Hannah was born, so my oldest, who just turned 16 yesterday, which is making me feel old. So it would have been 16 and a half years ago.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
now I don't know, right around, actually, I'm close to about 200 right now. So thanks to the Forge to get me to lose some weight.
So you're selling yourself short here though. So John then became like the running man in St. Louis, like 314 run, like had a company, 314 running. He was at all the races, started working with shoe companies in the running world. What's the longest race you've done? Because you've done some big ones. And what was the most challenging race you've done?
The longest race I've completed was the Silver Rush 50, which is a 50-mile race out in Leadville, Colorado,
Yeah, I'm not there.
at altitude. So you're starting at about 10,000 feet and don't get below that at all.
Oh, geez.
The longest I've ever ran was, and probably the toughest, was I was training that year for Leadville 100, which is a 100-mile race at altitude. And I think I made it 63 miles on that. And I ended up timing out. You have to climb this, you basically have to climb 3,000 feet in 4 miles and go over and go down and then turn around and do it again to go back towards the start. So I timed out on the way back over. That was by far the hardest, just because just physically demanding, mentally completely just trashed, and then just you can't breathe. You can either breathe, move, or eat. I think like when you're untrained at altitude, and you can only do one of those things, and it was tough. So that's definitely the hardest one. Yeah, I don't know. So I still like to do it. I still like to push myself. The 5Ks are fine, I guess, but that doesn't get me motivated much. It's kind of like when I finished my first marathon, I'm like, okay, I finished, got a good time, and I'm like, what's next? And so that's kind of when ultra running came in. It's like, okay, well, I wonder how many miles I can go in. There's like locally, there's a few 6-hour and 12-hour races. So I was like, 6 hours. Okay. If I can do a marathon in under 4, how far can I go in 6? So that's that's kind of how it all started. And now I haven't even ran 100 miles this year. I don't think I've ran 100 miles, but I'm probably in the best shape I've ever been in.
I was gonna say, I
Well, and
guarantee I haven't run 100 miles in the past 2 years.
Yeah.
If you don't
Yeah.
count soccer.
Well, I want to backtrack and dig into John's story a little bit, because this is so much on point with what we're talking about. So take me back to, you're probably what about 29 when you decided, all right, I want to not be a fat dad. And
Yeah.
that's where it started. So here's a 29-year-old dude, 280 pounds. And I would venture to say that at that point, if somebody told you that you would be running a 50-mile race, you'd have said, like, that's fucking impossible. I will never do that. You're crazy. But
Yeah, I would say yes. Yeah, so I don't know what really flipped the switch, right? So obviously finishing the first race and being able to follow through on something, when you're, I got my degree in exercise science, minor in biology. So, I kind of knew what I needed to do. I just never did it and never applied myself to all the teachings or whatever. But so one, setting a goal, following a plan, executing, perfect, right? So then I think the next part of that is there's when you finish some major goal, it doesn't matter if it's running 5K, the half marathon, 50 miles. I think there's two things that can either happen. One, you get depressed because you don't have a goal anymore. And you don't have that, you have like a lack of direction, or you set a new goal and follow that. So that's kind of the path I took, is setting another goal. Okay, it worked out great. Let's regroup here after I rest a little bit and figure out what the next thing is, because I know what happens when I don't execute on a plan and I don't have a goal. I get to be fat. So and then we had the baby coming and all that stuff. So it was there was plenty of motivation in there to just to stay healthy, to stay on the right path, I guess.
And then at what point, like, I would assume at some point you then started, what did you start to enjoy? Did you start to enjoy the running? Did you start to enjoy the competing with yourself, the competing with other people, the camaraderie?
Yeah.
What were the things?
So yeah, you can probably do this with golf. Like when you commit to because I can assimilate this to golf. So when you say, okay, I'm going to start getting better at golf, right? You go out and you shoot 110 or whatever it is. And the next time you go play, you practice, you go to the range, you put in the work. And the next time you go out and you shoot 100. Okay. So every time you go out at the beginning, even with a run, you're going to PR. You're going to get better and better and better and better and better. So that, I think, helps keep the drive early. But then there's a plateauing effect, and that's when you got to figure out what you need to do to change or switch things up, which I thought was kind of where I was exactly where I was at with my weight, with everything, with the Forge, because I was running 1,000 miles a year. I was still probably around 220. I had really shitty eating habits, drinking habits, all that stuff. So then you change it up, and then all of a sudden you're PRing again. And I think in the Forge or right after the Forge, like I said, I haven't ran much this year. Going into this, I did a race. I direct races locally, and so one of the races I direct, I actually got to run it this year, and it's 15 miles, 25K, and so never ran it, and I've ran 37 miles total going into that race. But I'm also in a different, I'm in better shape because of the Forge, and I ended up placing top 10 in that race with really not a lot of, hardly any endurance training at all whatsoever throughout the year. So the beginning, setting PRs or setting records or whatever keeps you going, keeps you coming back, but then there's going to be a plateau, and that's when things need to change.
Yeah, that's when you switch it up and new goal, right? New
goal, new maybe not a new goal, but a new just finding out a new way to do it. So
Awesome. Yeah, I mean, what's really cool is like I got to see this. John and I, we've been friends for a long time, and so I got to see this from the outside, and it was so amazing when I can remember you saying you were going to run a half marathon, or when I heard that you ran a half marathon. And it was like, whoa, cool. Shepherd ran a half marathon. And then it was like, 5 years later, Shepherd is like the running man in St. Louis. And it was just so cool to see that transformation. And I think that is such a great story for showing exactly the fact that when you finally laser in on something, that you just start to find ways to make it happen. You start to find ways to get better. You start to figure out the process and the goals and what the what the direction is that you want to take. And then all those different things start to come to you on how you can get better and new opportunities to get better.
Yeah, I think you mentioned it before in the call. I think intent is like, I don't know, at least 50% of it. If you're not doing something with intent to get to the next level or to do whatever, I don't think you're going to do it. You're just going through the motions. But if there's an intent behind it, I think that's key. To keep going back to the Forge. Up that week before I knew I was going to do the Forge, I kept saying, well, if I finish this. And so I changed that mindset to when I finish this.
Mm-hmm.
And so that if to when switch in my brain, that was the intent, right? I was going to finish. And I think that made every bit of impact. So
you said something else too about like when you finish something big, that you basically have a choice afterwards, right? You can celebrate that you finished and then go back to your old ways. And I've done that plenty of times. And that's really, it's almost like you can get into, or I'll speak for myself. I can get in a bit of a depressive state after something like that, because if I don't jump right into something new where I have to then push myself to some degree, it's really easy to just kind of like lay back, sit back and let things kind of go back to the way they were. And again, that's kind of that whole, setting your thermostat where you can, Ed Milet talks about it all the time. If you're a 75-degree operator and, the goal is to get higher and you start working at an 85-degree level, you're going to find a way to go back down to 75. And I think that's the key right there, that you have these times where you push and push and push and you do something really cool and awesome. Maybe that's, breaking 80, maybe that's breaking 70, maybe that's losing 20 pounds. And then you do it. And then you're like, phew, did it. And then you just let yourself slide. Whereas, and that's exactly why towards the end of the 40-day Forge, I was like, well, shit, I need to do something right after this. That's where the back 9 came from, because I knew that if I just stopped, I would just go right back to where I was. And I will say that now that I'm that far out from the back 9, there are definitely things that have slipped, right? As far as like just eating wise, socially, workouts. And so I'm already like, I got to get back into something because I need a new goal to push me forward. And I'm sure many of you that have done the Forge or something like that, you felt that, like you hit a big goal and all of a sudden it's like, well, now what? And so, John, that was huge, saying like, that's when you got to jump on the horse and do something right away. And I would suggest that have that kind of in your head already before you get to the end of that first goal. Because if you let the time slide, it's really easy to just let a couple of days go by, a week go by, a month go by, and then shit, I really should do something again. And it's a tough cycle to get into. We all go through it. And it's a natural progression, but when you can foresee that and plan ahead for those times, that's when you're going to just continue to climb and climb and climb. And like I said, you're back to the sustainability thing. Like, it's about slowly incrementing upwards and not just staying at a smooth plateau.
Yeah, the hardest thing is to get here. Like, let's weight, for example, get to 165, blow up to 170 and try to work out like, I was just here. Like, it's like I have to work my ass off to get to even. It's
So
like,
deflating.
it is. It's horrible. It's like buying new tires for your car. Like I spent all this money, I didn't see anything.
Hmm.
So there was like no, like, I know it's so hard. So you can't let yourself go too far, and it's real easy in the summer. By the way,
Yeah. Yeah. So like one tactic that, and maybe we can kind of close out on this. One tactic to put in place is almost have like a set limit on whatever your goal is. We've talked about it with weight. We've talked about it with body fat percentage. Like let's say you are at 20% body fat and you get down to 15%, and you're like, whoo, celebrate. All right, I did it. And then, typically we start to creep back up. Well,
Right.
rather than letting yourself get back up to 20, pick a set point where, all right, if I hit 17, I need to dial something back in again. And
Right.
you've already done it once. So you now know the things that you need to dial in. Or let's say handicap, right? Okay, let's say you're a 15 handicap and you want to get it down to a 10, and you get down to a 10, and then you start to see it creep up to put a limit on it. At 13, I need to go back and do the things that got me down to being a 10, which was probably just practicing more and being a little bit more intentional. Same thing with weight, same thing with, any kind of, with workouts or whatever it might be. Having, you're going to go through these periods of like just crushing it. And I like the Forge, like you're just on it. You're doing things that most people wouldn't do. But again, you're not going to sustain that for the rest of your life. So once you finish that, have some sort of a barrier between where you were and what that new, what your new goal was, or what goal you just reached, that it's almost like, it's like a warning sign. You get up to that point and like the sirens start blaring, like, hey, getting too fat again, like whatever it is, to kick it back on and say, like, you just have to be honest with yourself. All right, it's time to get back on the workouts. It's time to get back on the few nutrition habits that I know work. It's time to start drinking more water in the morning. It's time to do all these different things. But if you have that in your sights and you have that set ahead of time rather than reacting to it, you're going to set yourself up for so much more success. And then you continue to just see yourself getting a little bit better, which is the 1% better every day that we talk about all the time.
Yeah, I've never heard that piece of advice, but I've kind of gone through it a few times. But yeah, the 2 steps forward, 1 step back, where it's kind of like the life of an entrepreneur. You go up and down, but as long as you continuously go up. But yeah, that's good. It's like if you lose 10 pounds and then set it, okay, I can gain 2 more pounds back. That's much easier than trying to lose 10 pounds again.
Right. Don't let yourself go all the way back or beyond. How many people have lost 20 pounds and then they gain 30 pounds?
Right.
It's like, well, lost 20 pounds. If you see yourself gain 5 or 10 back, then okay, round the troops. Here we go again.
Yeah, that's mentally, I'm not going to say it's impossible to lose that 30 pounds after you just lost 20.
Oh, because it's so deflating. It's like,
right.
I did all this work and like, it's like, so then let's say you did I just keep using the Forge. You did the Forge and now you're back to worse off than you were before you started. And you're like, why did I put myself through that misery if now I'm worse off? Why would I do that again?
Right. Let's not do that to ourselves.
Let's not do that to ourselves. Let's not.
That's the dieting roller coaster. The yo-yo where you do that.
The golf fitness roller coaster.
Golf fitness roller coaster.
All right.
Cool. All right. So a little housekeeping. You are abroad starting tomorrow?
I leave this weekend.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we won't have the live Q&A next week or the following, correct?
Or the following. So first week of August, we will resume our Q&As.
And what are you going down the Rhine River?
And I'll be a world traveler.
Yeah. Again.
Yeah. The Rhine River, starting in Amsterdam and down to Frankfurt.
All right. So if you need Bodine, just call the Rhine River. They'll they'll find him.
Yeah.
What cruise line are you on?
Avalon.
Very good. You're going to really like that.
Yeah. Have
Yes.
you been?
Not them, but several friends of ours have been on them. You'll
Okay.
first class.
Awesome. Awesome. Love it. All right, guys.
Have a great time.
Thank you
Have
very
a great
much.
holiday.
Yes.
Will do. Definitely will do. This will be I think the longest I've ever been gone. So this will be interesting, and no kids. So that's kind
That's
of
great.
it'll be a little different, but it's going to be awesome. So
Weigh yourself today and then weigh yourself
Yeah.
when you get back.
Right.
I will do that. And I will come back the exact same weight. How about that?
That would be something.
Sounds
All
great.
right.
All
right,
right, have a good
guys.
trip. Bye.
Okay.
Take care.
Bye.
Thanks
See you
very much.
guys.
Thank you. Bye.